Hey everybody, I hope you guys have had a great last week. I hope this week is also going to be awesome for you. And I wanted to make a quick note to let all of you know that as your pastor, I am here for you. If you need someone to talk to, if you need advice, if you're wrestling with something in your heart, a question about the Bible, faith, life, or whatever, I want you to know that I'm here. And I also can be here just to listen. If you just need to talk and have someone listen to you, I want you to know that I am here as always, as I am. So with that, we are kicking off a brand new teaching series this week called Made for Mondays. So it's a little different, it's a little unconventional, and it might even sound like, wait, that sounds like a series that's for adults, not me, but it is for you guys. So go ahead and keep watching the video. When you get to the teaching part, you'll see it is for us. I'm looking forward to it. And for those of you who participated in the Trick Shot Challenge, that's awesome. Next week, we are going to have a new challenge. And if anyone has any ideas, please let me know. As always, I keep saying let me know. So any ideas, let me know. And with that, I hope you guys enjoy this week's video. When I was a kid growing up, I lived in a blended family. And we pretty much had a family dinner every single night. And in this family, for a long time, there were 7 people. 7 people. So that can be a lot of dishes. And it was my job, as one of the chores that I did growing up as a kid and then going into a teenager, was the dishes after every single family dinner every night. And we had a family meal, family dinner almost every single night. So that task, that chore, was specifically given to me and my older sister. And we did that for a very, very long time. And I'll tell you, I did not like it. Also, I thought one time, I just won't eat, so then I won't have to do the dishes. And I quickly learned that that's not how that works. My job still had to be completed whether or not I actually ate the meal that night. Another thing is schoolwork. Now, I never really liked school. I enjoyed seeing my friends. I didn't get bad grades, but I really didn't try, in middle school and high school. It really wasn't until I got to college that I really started to apply myself. And really looking back and thinking about it, I was just lazy. Plain and simple, I was lazy. Now, when I got to high school age, like some of you listening to this now, I got a job. And I got a job at a place called Pump It Up Party. And that was a birthday place for kids, and it had those gigantic inflatables. I've shared some stories about that before. And I really did enjoy working there. I did well, I tried hard, and I worked hard. But looking back and thinking about it, what I did when I went to work is my mindset was, I am here to earn money. And I'm here to earn money so I can save, so I can get that thing, so I can do that. And really, that's not a bad thing. But when the job, for me, became an end or a means to an end, meaning I just needed to save enough money to do this, I just needed to get enough to do this, but then once I didn't have any goals anymore per se, then work just seemed annoying and pointless, and I began to get lazy in that work. And therein lies the problem. The problem for a lot of people with doing any type of work. Sometimes if it's not really making us happy or whatever, we view it as a means to an end only, and that's where it stops, and that's the main problem. And this problem is pretty widespread for all people. You guys and also adults. Because you may be thinking, working, that's really just for adults, but that is not the case. Maybe you feel that way, that think something is a means to an end about schoolwork, where, I just need to finish this year so I can get to next year, so I can then go ahead and finish that year, so then I can finally get my diploma, so thus you're viewing school as a means to an end. The end meaning when I can graduate and I never have to learn and do all this stuff again. Means to an end. Maybe you view chores. Maybe your parents, like I had dishes to do, among other things. Maybe you have chores that you do, and you view them as a means to an end, meaning I'm going to do these chores because I have to, but once I'm done, then I can go do what I want. The chores are the means, the end is when then I can go and do whatever I want. And all of this is tied up in this idea, this single word, work. Now, work sounds like such a bad word. It sounds bad, it sounds like, a job and work and doing stuff. It just sounds something like we don't want. And you very rarely seem to hear somebody that says, I love my job. Like, you've probably heard somebody say that. Maybe your family, maybe parents, maybe someone else. You probably have. But more often than not, what we hear are people saying, I don't like my job. Now, this series we're kicking off this week, Made for Mondays, it might sound like a series that's for adults, but I want to tell you guys that it most definitely is not. And I want to lay a truth bomb, yeah, on you, that working and being made for Mondays, being made to work, is something we see in the Bible, as you can probably say, because we're doing a teaching series on this, but it is not just for adults, it is for everyone, because you have work that you do every single day. No, you might not have a full-time job. No, you might not be supporting a family like your parents or your family is. No, you might not have many responsibilities that come along with that, but you have responsibility. You have work to do. And if that is true, then the Bible's principles still apply to you. So at the outset of this entire series, Made for Mondays, I want to make it clear that I am here to challenge all of you these upcoming weeks. I'm here to challenge you, I am here to encourage you, and I hope that you get a little uncomfortable as you begin to self-evaluate yourself, as I have been, as I've been preparing to teach all of you. And I don't say these things out of a parent punishment where it's time for you to stop being lazy or this and that and all these different areas of your life. I say this out of love, because what the Bible says to do and what the Bible encourages us to do and how to live is always going to bring peace and joy and trust in Jesus, as opposed to death and decay and sin and all these other things that are not good. So, why work? Why is this important? Why are we talking about this? Well, my first point, so point number one, so just as a thing, if anyone out there is taking notes, if you are taking notes, that's awesome. If you're not taking notes and you didn't think about it, I encourage you to, but take some notes. But the first point is this: God is a God of work. God is a God of work. I'm going to read you a couple passages, and they're going to be put on the screen here. First, Hebrews 1:10 says, "In the beginning, Lord, you laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands." The heavens are the work of God's hands. He made them. He created them. Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." He worked and created by His power, by His hand. Genesis 2:1-3 says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day God had finished the work He had been doing. So on the seventh day He rested from all His work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it He rested from all of the work of creating that He had done." The work of creating that He had done. And then Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we," so you and I, all people, believers, are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." So we are God's handiwork. He created us. He worked to make us so that we could do good works. And also Jesus, being God, who took on a human body thousands of years ago, Jesus worked. I don't know if you guys know this, but Jesus was a carpenter. Most of you probably heard that. Now, the Greek word that gets translated carpenter in the Gospels, Mark 6:3 says, people are talking, they're like, "Isn't this the son of Joseph, the carpenter, son of the carpenter?" So Jesus was a carpenter by trade. He grew up for about 30 years doing carpentry work. Though, when we hear carpentry, we think of just woodwork. Like maybe Jesus would have made something like this here. But the Greek word that gets translated carpenter could mean artisan. It could also mean like a handyman. So we don't really know exactly what the word is referring to specifically. It could be a very broad term. So Jesus, he could have worked with wood. He could have been a builder of sorts. He could have been a handyman. He's kind of the guy who comes and fixes something that goes wrong. But the point is, when God became a human and He came to the earth that He made, His creation, He worked. In John chapter 4, we see Jesus saying, "My food, my work, what I'm doing is the work of the Father. I'm here to do that." And Jesus, for 3 years, did His spiritual work, preaching and teaching. He walked on foot, sometimes up to 25 miles in one day, preaching and teaching and traveling around. Jesus was an extremely, extremely hard worker. you and I, all people for that matter, are made in God's image. And because we are made in God's image, we are like Him. We're not divine like Him, but because we are like Him, we are called to do the things that He does. Like love other people, like show kindness, serve other people as Jesus served us. And God serves us when He puts this redemptive plan into place. We're to follow in His footsteps, to be like Him, which includes to work. So God is a God of work. That's point one. Point number two, work was a part of the original good creation. Work was a part of the original and good creation. Genesis 2:15 says, "The Lord God took the man, put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to take care of it." You know, this might sound weird that work was a part of the original creation when it was good, but it's what the Bible teaches. Genesis 2, God has just finished making everything. He makes Adam, and He puts him in the garden to work. To work. And we might think like that's backwards. Like, David, that's backwards. Work is a sinful thing, and it's because of sin. And that's actually quite the opposite of what we see. When we look at the Bible story, we see Adam working first when everything is perfect. Sin comes, and then the work is cursed because of sin as a punishment. So what we see then is Genesis 3:17 through 19 says, "Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat food from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return." Creation itself has been corrupted. Adam was a farmer, an agricultural man of sorts. And God says, because you've sinned, you know what? Thorns and thistles are going to come. You're going to have really hard work to get food. And I think that this curse goes beyond just literally working in the ground. It has to do with all work, all pursuits of life. And God has made it this way. And I think there's a reason from that. It's because God doesn't want us to find satisfaction in our work, ultimate satisfaction. He wants us to find it in Him, because only God can satisfy us. So what we see then today, and really through all of human history, are two different facets. On one side, we see people who are workaholics. Not as many of them, but people who just go and go and go and go, and they never take a break, and they're always going, they're always on, and never seems like they just pause and reflect and rest. But then on the other side, which was where you might find yourself, is the lazy side of it, where some people just have no motivation to do anything. And you would look at them, or maybe you're thinking of yourself, like, wow, just lazy. Don't work hard, only caring about resting, and things like that. And the fact of the matter is both of those are wrong. And there needs to be a balance somewhere in the middle. You were made to work. And if that is making some of you feel inside, that's okay. That is because of the sin in this world and the context we find ourselves. But the fact of the matter is we were made to work, and work is going to be difficult. Work is going to be wearisome sometimes, but you know what? When we are working with the right purposes, the right motives, not just so that it's a means to an end, but ultimately we're working for somebody else other than ourselves, there will be reward in the joy, and joy from the work that we are doing. So, we were made to work. I want you to now start to think about what work you have in your life. So just start to think about it, and you guys are at home watching this right now, so if you want to say it out loud, say it out loud. But start to think, where do I do work? What types of areas do I work? You know, I know a few of you have a job, not all of you though. But I think the first one that should pop right out to all of us is schoolwork. We got to go to school. We got to do our schoolwork. That's mandatory up until 12th grade, graduating high school. Maybe some of you do chores around the house, and I hope that you would. That's another big one, doing chores, maybe like me, doing the dishes or things like that. But maybe some of you babysit your siblings, where there's that age difference where it makes sense, or maybe some of you babysit other people. Maybe some of you have a paid job. What is it? Where do you do work? But I think work goes beyond these things that come to our mind right away. I would call some of these things physical work or like job type, manual labor job type work, but there's also something I call emotional work. And this might sound kind of weird, but I want you to stick with me here. I say emotional work, and I think emotional work is what we could call our friendships and our relationships. You have friendships with people. You have relationships with other people, your family, your friends. And you know what? They take work. They take intentionality. It takes not being lazy, and you have to put your best foot forward to spend time and to listen to other people, to give to them. Because if you don't and you're lazy and you're always, well, I just want them to be there when I want them to be there, and I'm never there for them, and I'm never going to call them to see if they're okay, I'm never going to offer my help, that's a lazy person in a friendship or relationship, and you are not working very hard in your relationships. Well, then what about exercise? You know what? Exercise is a type of physical work where we work out our bodies in order to keep them strong and healthy. We also can do mental work, which is partly school, which it's our, mental work could be your school work. They all kind of relate to each other in different ways, but mental work. Do you read outside of schoolwork? I know a lot of you got a lot to do and a lot of reading, but someday when you graduate, I really hope that you keep reading. I didn't for a long time, and some people say, I'm not a reader. If you're not a reader, then on some levels you are not going to be growing mentally. And I know I'm probably stepping on some toes saying that if some are listening to this, but I'm sorry, if you are not a person who reads at all, you are doing a huge disservice to yourself. So where are you? Are you more on the workaholic side, or are you more on the lazy side? Well, the Bible has a lot to say. This is stepping on toes here, but it has a lot to say about laziness in the work that we do. Proverbs 6:10-11 says, "A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man." Proverbs is saying here, those people who like to just rest, and it's like, just let me sleep in every day until 10, or let me do this. That type of a mindset ultimately, and in many, many, many cases, is going to lead to poverty. Sometimes there are people, and I've been in this situation where my mindset was at this place, but what we do is we get so lazy, and then we look around at others who have things, and we say, if just this happened, or they have so much of this, and they have so much of that, or they're so lucky, not realizing that the problem might be the amount of work we're putting in our lives to things. Proverbs 6:10-11. Proverbs 20, verse 13 says, "Do not love sleep, or you will grow poor. Stay awake, and you will have food to spare." What's this passage saying? Well, it's saying people who love to sleep way more than they love to work with their hands and accomplish what God has given them to accomplish, well, they might not have enough food. They might not make enough. It's pretty simple. You don't go to work, you don't make money, you can't buy food and other things. So what do we need to do? I just went through verse after verse after verse and all this stuff about work and how work is good, and the difficulty in work is because of sin. Work isn't from sin. Work was here since the beginning. What are you supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? And what are we supposed to think about all this? First thing, I want you to think of a line. Or better yet, if you can pause this video and get out a piece of paper and draw this and follow along with me, that would be awesome. But to draw a line, and to look at that line, and on one end, write lazy on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, write workaholic. And then what I want you to do is to think, if you were to have to draw an X somewhere on that line, where would you fall on that line? With your schoolwork, so your mental work, your physical work, your exercise? Are you thinking, I need to keep my body healthy? You don't have to be an athlete. We all need to keep our bodies healthy, but some people, are on sports teams. You don't have to be an athlete, but we do need to keep working out our bodies just like we need to keep working out our minds. What about working out your emotional health, the emotional work, your friendships and all that stuff, and your relationships? And what about your spiritual work? Are you sharing the gospel with others? Are you being a mentor to somebody else? Are you being an example to somebody else? Take all of those kind of as if you would average them, and where would your X fall on that line? Are you more lazy? Are you more of a workaholic? Are you balanced? Are you in a good place? And then you can break it down further. Make a line for each one of those. The mental, the emotional, the relational, and the spiritual. types of work. If you were to do the same thing, lazy, workaholic, where would your X land on each of those lines? And balanced. Being balanced means working hard and resting at the appropriate times. You know what, guys? There's a reason why in the Bible God created for 6 days and it says He rested for one, and that's why our weeks are set up that way. We work for 6 days, and we rest on one. We don't rest on 6 and work for one. We work on 6 and we rest for one. But ultimately, work is about something higher. It's about something bigger than just, I need to finish my schoolwork, I need to do my chores, and for many of you in the future, so I can get money. It's so much bigger than that. Work is a gift. Work is a blessed gift. And if our attitudes tell us, I hate that, I hate work of any kind, then that means that there's some serious stuff going on in your heart that you need to work through. But you know what? I need to work through. We all need to work through, because we all fall into these traps. So I want you guys to evaluate yourselves. Do that line test. Take out a piece of paper, do a big line with an average, and then do the small ones and write down where do you fall in those 4 areas: mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. Because it doesn't matter the job we do. All work, if thought of correctly, if engaged incorrectly, is ultimately about serving Jesus. It's about serving God. It's about adding value. It's not just, so I can get this or that. It's about others. It's about adding value to these different areas of life. And that's what we're going to talk about next week.